This is Inspirational Women, a weekly series shining the spotlight on female trailblazers making a true difference in our community. Once again, here is Kate Daniels.
Amy Friedman has a somewhat similar mission as Dr. Julie, hers of guiding young people in particular in ways of healing themselves. Amy is an author and writing teacher, the editor of Young People's Writing and Artwork anthology, with the 11th edition, A Secret Chord, ready to launch. Amy Friedman, good morning, and thank you for joining us once again.
Good morning, Kate. Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
Well, you are doing the work that I think all of us need to appreciate if we aren't already. And I think the ones appreciating it too are the students who get to interact with you and the others who are involved with this amazing organization and giving them this creative outlet so that they're able to really express themselves. But they wouldn't do it if they didn't have this opportunity to do the writing and the artwork that you afford them.
Yeah, I would say yes and no. That's true. Some of them are just born artists and writers, and it's their way of expressing themselves in the world. Some of them in the clubs that we run discover their artist in themselves. Yeah. And I think it's a really healing experience. I think most people, funny enough, earlier today, I was talking to a friend who was bemoaning his lack of ability to write. And I said, you just need a little more encouragement. I think many people are afraid to express themselves on paper and just need to be sort of led there a little bit. But I think it's always a discovery when you start to tell your stories.
And I think as you have experienced then with the students too, that they find, and what you offer is a free space in terms of no judgments, no interference, right? Just really being able to look within themselves and let that come forward.
Correct. And I mean, just to kind of put the context here, yes. These clubs that began as, the name began as POPs, the club, which stood for Pain of the Prison System. When in 2022, I believe, the Pathfinder Network of Portland, Oregon, took over operating the smaller organization that was POPs to serve youth who have been impacted by incarceration, detention, and deportation. And, which is particularly important right in this moment. And, one of the things about these clubs is that they are a space where first kids who have been stigmatized and shamed, and that has led to their silencing. But suddenly they're in a room with all these other people who have had this experience, and they realize, I'm not alone. I'm not the only one. I have so much inside of me that I have kept quiet for so long, and I have a lot to say. And what comes out in their writing and in their art making is so beautiful and just driven by that energy and passion of, I think, feeling like they weren't supposed to tell their truths. And because I once upon a time led the organization that was POPs, but now I have the great pleasure of just being the editor of the books that we produce. So I get to read and see the art that they create just over and over and over again, and be every single time blown away by what teenagers know and the way they think and the way they see and what they understand that we adults, I think, too seldom give them credit for. I also think about the fact that I raised teenagers, so I'm sure I never asked my daughters what they were thinking about, especially when they were in that place where they were just pouting at me, But these kids just amaze me over and over and over again.
And so here they have that opportunity of basically that question being there with no pressure, though, of having to provide an answer, yet what I gather is they are in a community in their classroom with others who are like them. And there's something to be said for feeling like, oh, I'm not the only one. I'm not being singled out. That kind of comfort, and yet again, that freedom to really realize that I'm okay. I'm a good person. And here's what I can do.
Right. And, the other thing is we offer them the option of being anonymous or of using a pen name. For many years, I encouraged kids to use their own name. Right now, in this particular political climate, I am really glad that we've always had the option of people being anonymous. And so many young people are enduring this pain of, so many of these kids are from mixed status families and are terrified and horrified and dismayed and just afraid, but they have a much to say. So this particular release, our newest one, which is called A Secret Chord, I believe there are more anonymous pieces than there have been in the past. And I'm actually now working on next year's release, and there are more still, which is both horribly sad, but also I'm really glad that we can still hear from them.
Absolutely. And doesn't that in itself, the fact that they feel that need to be anonymous, speak so loudly as to the climate that we live in? What a burden. And I feel like these are traumas that are being inflicted unnecessarily.
Definitely. I think the thing that has made me both the saddest and the most angry is when I read kids writing about, I never knew how many people hated us. I never, these sense of being unloved, uncared for, unacceptable. And it's just infuriating, but it also inspires me to want these books out in the world. It makes me want everybody to read them.
Yes.
They're so important. So for the initial impetus for the organization and also for the books was that the girls that I raised were the daughters of a man I met when he was in prison and met and fell in love with and married. I was a newspaper columnist visiting prison. And my girls inspired me because I wanted kids to have a place where they knew they weren't the only ones, where they weren't alone. So early on, incarceration was the focus, I think, but always because kids would come and say, well, my dad's in a detention center, or my mom was deported, so the mission expanded to include those kids, thankfully. And it's very pertinent in this moment. And so I just, because I've been doing this work for a long time, 14 years, I think, longer, if you include the pre-launching the nonprofit. I know many, many, many DACA recipients who are now terrified and brokenhearted. So, yeah, I don't mean to make this a sad conversation, but
I think you're laying that foundation or the groundwork as to what exists. And some of this has just really been a groundswell in the last couple of years with what's been going on. And to think of how we can do something to heal it. Sometimes I think what we want to do something, and I know that we've had in this Puget Sound area various marches to bring awareness and to support those who are immigrants and to set up protections that we can. But here's a way. It's twofold in terms of giving an opportunity to these young people to express themselves and let us hear what they have to say, which is important to know, but then we can support who they are with the purchases of these books and realize, the talent that's here, the human beings, the living bodies and souls of people and what's going on for them.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah. And, an amazing thing, I mean, yes, I want everybody to buy these books. I will say the really joyful, the most joyful experience of all of this work for me is when I get to bring the book into the room. When you say to somebody, you're going to get published, and they sort of say, yeah, sure. And then you bring it in and they see this beautiful book that's like professionally edited and designed, and they see their name and their words or their artwork, and the joy in them is just palpable. And I think that some of them, they get reviewed too, and we've gotten some beautiful reviews, and a lot of times they'll pick out a piece. And I remember this year showing this one young woman, look at this, you're written about in this review. I swear, I thought she was going to faint. she was so overjoyed and stunned. And she looked at me and she said, so people read these? It's like, yeah, amazing, right? And it's really, really inspiring and healing. And often, like most of the kids we serve are high school age. There are some clubs that work with middle schoolers and younger. But as they get older and older, maybe the first year they'll say, no, I'm not going to submit anything. I don't. But by 11th grade or 12th grade, they're like, yep, I have 6 things here. So once they see their friends being published and they hear people talking about this work, it's really inspiring for them. So yes, I mean, I want people to buy the books, and I want people to write to us and to tell us what they'd like to say to the kids.
And how would they go about that? Would they do it through a website?
Yeah, so the website is the pathfinderclub.org, where people can read all about what the clubs are and the mission and the vision. And then there's a drop-down menu, publishing, and all the information is there. So it's the pathfinderclub.org. So that's the best way to find out everything that is needed to be known.
Which is great. And then we can see not just this newest book featured there, but see all the ones that have gone before and see the marvelous work that's being done. And we just don't know. You see the changes that are occurring, but it's going to take time to see how all of this evolves and really how critically important the writing is, the artwork is in the development of this young person.
Yeah. And, I'm glad you said that, because one of the things I've learned, quite often it takes until maybe 2 or 3 years after graduation, I will hear from people who graduate like years later or 5 years later or 6 years later saying, I don't think I realized how profound that experience was of getting published, of being a part of those clubs until now. I'll tell one little story that is the one that always just sort of breaks my heart and also fills it up. But there was a young man, this is many years ago now, who had been homeless. His father went to prison and his mother lost the home, and he and his siblings were homeless for a period of time. And he fell kind of far behind in school. And when he joined the club, he was really shy about writing. He felt uncomfortable. And then all of a sudden, one day, he just wrote something. And he got up in front of the room and read it. And everybody just started cheering. And it was like this beautiful, tiny little piece. Got published that year in the book we published that year. And about 5 years later, I got a phone call from this young man one day saying, hi, I'm just checking in. And would you have time for a cup of coffee? You and your husband. My husband and I launched the club together. And so we said, sure. And we were talking about it, and we thought, oh, maybe he needs like a job, help with finding a job, or maybe he needs some money, or let's see what it is. So we go and we meet with him, and he looks great, and he's doing really well, and he has a great apartment, and he has a girlfriend, and he has a job. And he's telling us this story about how a few years after he graduated, or a year after he graduated from high school, he found himself homeless again for a period of time, living out of his car. And one day his car was stolen, and with it, everything he owned. And so I'm waiting and I'm thinking, he's going to ask us if we could help him buy a bed, or I don't know. And he says, and there's just one favor I have to ask of you. When they stole the car, I lost my book that I was published in. And I just wondered if maybe I could get another copy, because it was one of the most important things in my life to be published in that book. It was just, and I've heard less dramatic versions of that, but over the years, many, many, many kind of tales like that. There's a young man I know who's now working as a tattoo artist, and he was inspired to believe in his own artistic ability by getting published in the book with his artwork. So there's just story after story like that.
Oh, yes. I mean, how can you not feel that you are doing the right thing when you get that kind of feedback, and know that you don't do it necessarily to build a foundation. You're doing this, well, to build a foundation, but to really encourage each single young person that they have value, that they matter, that who they are and what they're doing really is important in the development of this world. So there's no gift greater than that, right?
Oh, I'm a really lucky person. Yeah.
And so, yeah, you're in the right place doing the right thing, and really giving each of these young people such an invaluable opportunity. Well, they're getting that in the clubs, and here you are. This is an incredible responsibility, though, to make the selections of what is going to then be published.
Yes. The worst part of my job is that every year I work with a designer who creates the cover, but we always use a piece of art that is submitted. And it's my least favorite thing to have to decide, because there's often sort of different directions you can go, and there are many pieces that are just wonderful, and the person who's going to have the cover is really lucky. But I kind of hate it, but I'm right in the middle of that right now for
the next year, right? Well, with this one, A Secret Chord, Poetry, Stories, and Arts, this artwork is a bird. I think of it as looking like a robin. I love seeing the robins in the spring. They're such a heralder of good times. So here's this bird sitting on a branch, and I see that, I think of this bird as having a note it sings. There's that song it has. And the title here, A Secret Chord, really kind of envelops all that, or they really complement each other.
Thank you. Yes. A Secret Chord is a line from Leonard Cohen's song, Hallelujah.
I love it.
I heard there was a secret chord that David played and it pleased the Lord. And the thing about this book is when, as I'm getting work submitted, I start to kind of hear the theme as time goes on. I remember during COVID, the book we did after that first year is called Dear Friends, because everything was about their friends. Everything was about missing friends and longing for friends and loving friends. And this one, it was so interesting because it's not right on the nose, but all these pieces kept coming in that were so musical in some way and sounded, I could hear notes, as I was reading and looking at photographs. And I just kept hearing that line over and over and over again. It really felt like music. So yeah, the kind of overarching theme of this book is music. And that's how we decided to divide the sections into, there's a section called melody and there's a section called dissonance and so on. But I hope readers will hear that same song that I was hearing. Not a sad song, but really sort of wanting to get the news out, if that makes sense.
When And I love the Leonard Cohen song. I could just
Mhm.
listen to it repeatedly, and because there's something that it just reaches deep inside of us, like it touches
Yep.
our soul,
Yep.
and so here is, it's reflected in terms of the artwork and the poetry and the stories, right? That it's reaching deep within ourselves if we allow that to happen. We can't
Correct.
force it, but I think if we open ourselves up to wanting what is good and to be the kind people that we are meant to be, we're called to be, then we will feel the message here.
Yeah, I hope so.
I,
That's
I'm right. We're trusting, so that'll happen.
yeah, yeah. I mean, I tell you, they always like it's every year. It amazes me. Every year I think, uh-oh, what if I don't sense any kind of theme happening here? And every year it just happens. Like it'll take sort of 3 weeks or so of like reading over and over things and looking at the art, but it just starts to tell me what it's supposed to be. And this is one of my favorites of all the books we've done. I just love it. Partly because even in the midst of a lot of sadness, there's this real hopefulness. And that's the bird to me, that photo by Roxy Menard. She had a bunch of photos that kind of fit, but there's another Leonard Cohen song called Bird on a Wire.
Mhm.
And so I kept seeing them together. Sort of.
Yes, yes.
And I also, last year's book had a collage of art, so it was like a busier cover. So there's something, this one is very simple and kind of black and white and just beautiful in a different way from last year's.
Yes. So in terms of already someone by having their artwork right on the front is feeling particularly excited that this is being shared with the world. And I know that every single piece in here is really important, but is there one that perhaps stands out that you would want to share, Amy?
I would,
Yes.
actually.
Okay.
I think I won't read the whole thing,
Okay.
but because it's not super long, but I will read a part of it. It's called "We Have the Same Blood" by Shay Freeman. We have the same blood, but I feel like I know nothing about you. We have the same blood, but you worry about the ones with different DNA. We have the same blood. We grew up together. You've seen my blood shed, and you used to bandage me. We have the same blood because we both bled from what our mom did to us. We have the same blood, but we didn't have the same vote. You voted for a man who wants to deport my friends, who doesn't share my blood, but I consider them my brothers. We have the same blood, but our opinions shed more than we do. And I'll leave it at that, but it goes on.
Yes.
It's funny, like I opened this up today and there's so many I thought about reading, but for some reason that one just really hit me today.
Yeah, it's incredible to have that opportunity to share that. Alone, a person might not journal or write about something, but here in the club, they're able to have that space when they're ready to do that, and that it's a priceless gift to be able to offer that, and what that means not just for them, which is meaningful, but for us to be able to read it, to hear it, to share it is incredible.
It's just one of so many. There were, I kept looking. I was finding all of Roxy's other photographs that they're all so beautiful, and it just like, yeah, everything in here. I just love this book. I love this book. I can't say enough about how much I love it.
And so you are the perfect person, obviously, right, to be doing this work, because your love surrounds all of that and brings it forward. And so because of that, and because of these really challenging and stressful times that really have a way of really kind of beating so many of us up, here we have a way to find this connection and support each other, and it's so important to hear each other's stories.
Yeah, it really is.
Yeah.
It really is. Yeah, and this is going to sound a little cuckoo, but many, many years ago, I lived on a farm with a partner, and it was his farm, and I did a ton of work on this place. We rebuilt everything, and I learned how to do all kinds of stuff. And then we broke up, and I moved out. And I was moving out, and my best friend said to me, "Aren't you mad about all that work you did?" And I thought, no, I feel like I helped make this place more beautiful. So I've like left this thing in the world that's a little more beautiful. And I feel that way about this. Like, I'm a writer also, but this like ability to help other people make their work a little more beautiful and like put something a little beautiful out into the world just is a joy.
Oh, yes. So perfect. And I can't help but think of a children's book called Miss Rumphius. You need to find it. Miss Rumphius. I'm not going to remember the author's name at the moment, but in her experiences through this children's book, so it moves along quickly, her impetus is, what can I do to make the world more beautiful? And so that resonates with me. I love the book, but here you are doing that. It's what can I do to make the world more beautiful? And you're collecting the stories, the beautiful input, the artwork and the poetry, the words of so many people, young people particularly, that need that to be heard. And you give them this platform, this book, this tangible thing that they can hold and see themselves. And again, you shared the story of what it meant to one young man, but it's repeated countless times. Countless.
Yep.
Yes.
A lot of young people have taken their art and their writing much farther, doing these books, having started them on the path to knowing that they were creators.
See, just makes you well up inside. It's just so incredible. So we can be part of it. Our part in this is that we can support the work by purchasing the book.
Purchase the book. And also, I would invite people to look at the website to read about the clubs, because the Pathfinder Network is expanding the clubs to other places. I'd love to bring them to the Seattle area it would be really wonderful to see them in more and more schools. They started in schools, and now under Leticia Longoria Navarro's leadership, she's the executive director of the Pathfinder Network, and Victor Trillo is the manager of the Pathfinder Club, the whole sort of the umbrella that holds all these clubs. They've expanded into detention centers and also into some community clubs that are serving sort of in smaller areas that serve a number of schools like within the area, and also kids who are homeless and not attending schools. And the more better.
Yes. And that kind of information is available through the website.
Also on the website, thepathfindernetwork.org. Yep.
Excellent. Well, this is such incredible work. Our being able to converse about it is really such a gift, Amy Friedman. I'm so grateful that we've been able to connect, and now to be able to share this with others so they become more aware and do their part, whatever they're called to, just like you give the students this opportunity to do the writing.
And Kate, thank you for creating the platform for me to be able to talk about it. Really appreciate it.
Well, I am so grateful. And again, many thanks for taking time with us today, Amy.
Thank you.
Thank you for being here this morning to meet these amazing women who are so deeply committed to making a difference in people's lives and thus making the world a better place. Please check this station's website for the podcasts for more information about these guests, and please share the stories with your family and friends. I'm Kate Daniels. If you'd like to connect with me, please send me an email, katedaniels@hubbardradio.com. The smallest act of kindness is worth more than the grandest intention. That from Oscar Wilde.
Thank you for listening to Inspirational Women. Tune in every Sunday morning at this time to hear about those truly empowering the Northwest community, all for the greater good. Sunday Morning Magazine and Inspirational Women are a public service of Hubbard Radio Seattle.